And now we look to Aldebaran Resources when CEO John Black is standing beside me. Welcome.
Thank you, Michael.
So I think you should begin by introducing the company just briefly.
Perfect. So my name's John Black. I'm the CEO of the company. I'm an exploration geologist by background. And at Aldebaran Resources, what our group specializes in doing is identifying projects that can be very large copper or copper gold deposits, the type of a project that a major miner would like to acquire and put into production. We identify these projects in a downturn in the market or a special circumstance, capture the project, and then we add value by drilling them out, de-risking them to about a pre-feasibility stage, and ideally selling them to a major mining company. And what we're most excited about right now is our flagship project, ALDE, which is turning out to be a very large copper deposit, and we very soon will be putting out our first PEA on that project to demonstrate the economic viability. So it's a great time to have a project like we have in a country that's dramatically improving their investment environment, and we couldn't be more pleased than where we're at this moment.
And could you tell us a little bit about your impressions here at Nordic Funds and Mines?
Absolutely. This is my first visit to Sweden, and I couldn't be more impressed with this conference, actually. We've had most of the first day, had some outstanding contacts with new potential investors, very well-educated group and very well selected group of both companies presenting and investors producing here. We've noticed over the last few years that we're seeing more investors interested in our company from Scandinavian in general, particularly Denmark and Sweden. And so it's fantastic to be here in person and meet many of these people we've talked to from long distance. It's nice to have the opportunity to meet in person now.
Has it always been like that here in the Nordics, that interest have been high for mining companies?
Not quite so much, but we're a Canadian-based company. So traditionally, most of our investor base has been in Canada or North America. It's been recently that we're just seeing more interest out of Europe and more interested from young people. I think there's a greater acceptance that copper is fundamental to a transition to a new type of energy environment that we're moving forward in, and the importance of copper's role in a greener world moving forward. And that's resulted in much more interest in investing in copper companies. So we saw that pick up, and we felt it's best for us to be over here and communicate more with potential investors.
Looking at copper demand then is forecasted to go from 26 million tons, 2022 that is, to 53 million tons in 2050, expecting to double every 25 years or so. What primarily drives that demand?
Really what primarily drives that is population. As the world's population increases, more copper is necessary, but also as the standard of living of people that live in the world increases, we need more copper. We can point to specific things like more copper use in electric vehicles, more copper use in AI data centers, but that's not the only thing. That's part of it, but overall it's really just a population growth. As you mentioned, it's a phenomenon we've seen approximately every 25 years. We double the amount of copper that's needed. What the challenge is, as an industry, it's hard for us to keep up with producing the copper. So that's what's going to most likely produce a supply-demand issue, which will probably lead to higher copper prices, which means companies will be looking for projects like we have.
Looking at your flagship project then, the ALDE Copper Gold, is quite an acquisition story. Could you tell us a history about the project?
Yeah, it's interesting. As I mentioned, our strategy is to identify projects like this and acquire those. So we're typically looking for a project that has some indications that there's already something there, some drilling done, maybe by a major or two majors before. They've done some work, they've given us just enough data that we can see the potential there, but then the project becomes available. This one's interesting because it was actually a project that had quite a lot of drilling. It had been mostly drilled out by a company called Peregrine Metals, a Canadian junior, very much like ourselves, run by Eric Friedland, Robert Friedland's brother. They drilled the project out in 2011. The project was sold to Stillwater Mining Company, a platinum producer, for almost $500 million. You'd think, okay, that story was over. They've done exactly what we like to do on a project like this. But Stillwater was a platinum producer with a mine in Montana in the US. Their shareholders were not particularly thrilled about having a project that was an early stage copper project in South America. The price that was paid was a reasonable price compared to acquisition of similar assets, but it wasn't a very good fit within Stillwater Mining. So we noted that, we saw that it was kind of a misfit, And in the decade between 2011 and 2022, when things were kind of tough in our space, copper prices were down, these type projects weren't sought after, it was just stalled in there. We started monitoring it. We noticed that there was some potential for new discoveries. And a key event happened when Sibanye bought Stillwater, and they bought Stillwater for their platinum mine in Montana. They marked this as a non-core asset for disposal and indicated to groups like ourselves monitoring it that we had a short period of time to make an indicative offer. If they received an offer that they liked, they would engage with us. If not, they would hire a bank and sell it. So we made an offer for a project that had over $550 million invested into it, over 120,000 meters of drilling. We were able to acquire an 80% interest in the project for $15 million, and we awarded Sibanye a 19.9% equity position in our company and a carried 20% interest in the project for the first $55 million of spend. So we convinced them that rather than sell the project for $50 or $100 million and then have us turn around and sell it for much more, that it might be better that they provided an easier access for us to get to the project, and that we'd work together to have that 20% interest in the project and the 19.9% equity interest in the end provide them more benefit than they would receive at the time. And they saw our logic to this, so we entered into the agreement. We now own 80% of the project, and it's moving forward very rapidly, and we're into the environment where I believe we'll start to see that original valuation that was paid for it. And
there's a third party combined here as well, Newton, that has received options of $250 million for 20% coming out of your shares. Your 80 sort of becomes 60. Apart from liquidity, what does a third member of a joint venture add?
In this particular case, we have a long-term relationship with Rio Tinto. And Rio Tinto is developing new technology which may allow for the processing of primary sulfide mineralization by heap leach technology instead of the more conventional milling and concentration, more capital intensive. So they've been entering into agreements with parties like ourselves. Our sister company, we have a company that's also exploring a large copper gold project in Peru right now. We had an agreement with Rio Tinto there. They've extended that relationship to the project here. So they have an option to buy a 20% interest in the project by making a series of payments. They paid us $10 million upon signing the agreement. They paid us $20 million last year when we produced the first mineral resource estimate on the project. We'll finish a PEA in the next month, by hopefully the end of this month, earliest November. At that point, their next option payment would be $30 million, and then they have a final payment of $190 million upon completion of a pre-feasibility. If they make all of those option payments, they will have paid us $250 million to buy a 20% interest in the project. I'm not sure if they'll go all the way through. One possibility is if they still like the project at that point, maybe we discuss them buying all of our interest in the project. We'll see where that goes. But it gives them optionality to obtain a direct interest in the project. Rio Tinto is the second largest mining company in the world, but they're about number 9 in copper production. And so these type of agreements, what they're looking for is rather than equity interest in us, that's okay, they can make some money off of that, but what they really want is attributable copper. And so when we had this discussion, they were looking for a way that they could have a direct interest in a project that they feel has potential to go forward. And of course they can monitor it, work with us. They're great partners, we're really pleased. And keep in mind they're working with Los Azules, a McEwen mining project that's only 50 kilometers away. So they have interest in the area with potential synergies between projects.
I see. But at the full 250, does that mean that Aldebaran is fully funded?
With those funds, we're fully funded through pre-feasibility, which is fantastic. And it's a funding that we don't issue shares for that, so it's non-dilutive funding, which is highly advantageous to our shareholders. We're preserving maximum value for our shareholders.
And what about your other assets in your portfolio?
Great question. When we started Aldebaran to capture the option on Altar, we had 6 assets in the northern part of the country, in Salta, Jujuy, and Catamarca. Our original intent was to work hard during the field season on Altar, and then we have about 3 months when it's pretty snowy and we can't be on the ground, that we would return and work on the projects up north. But Altar's taken off on us. It's become the clear flagship, and it's occupying all of our bandwidth really now on that project. So we found that we weren't doing much on the projects in the north. They're earlier stages, they're not the typical project we work with, but we were being pestered by groups to see if they could option those. We actually had the government kind of pushing us to do something with them, because with Argentina being a hot spot for exploration now, a lot of companies are trying to come in, but it's hard to find projects. When we evaluated the situation, what we've determined the best course of action for our shareholders is that we just announced a couple of weeks ago an intent to spin those out. So we'll make a new company, a spinco, that comes out of Aldebaran that will include all of those assets in the north. We've identified an outstanding candidate to run that company by the name of Sam Leong. And Sam has a great track record. He worked business development for the Lundin family, so he knows Argentina well in that sense. He was a founder for Adventus, which was a success story that was built up and acquired by another company. And he also was very instrumental in getting the Diablillos project going in northern Argentina right now. So he knows Argentina well. He operates in a very similar manner. And one of the things that was critical for us is that we put these projects in good hands that can take the project forward. We're very busy with 2 companies and 2 outstanding big projects now. To take on a 3rd project that we manage would dilute our interest too much. So I couldn't be more pleased than having Sam agree to come on board and take that and go forward. We'll be in the background, we'll help on the project, but we won't be day-to-day management.
And for investors that are more curious about Aldebaran Resources, where should they look to?
Best place probably is to go to our website. Ben Charrington manages IR for us. You can easily find his contacts there, or myself or others. Please just reach out. We're quite available. We're at most shows like this, and we'd be happy to talk about our projects, talk about our sister company Regulus with its very interesting project in northern Peru, or just to talk about the copper market in general. We always learn when we have conversations with good investors that are curious about the same space.
Thank you very much, John Black.
Great, thank you, Michael.